Exercise 7. In this exercise, you're going to learn about a particular type of mask called the quick mask. The quick mask is actually a selection tool, but also works like the masks that you just used in exercise 6. In this case, we're also going to go in and we're going to learn a little bit about spot color through two different methods. So we'll begin to start off by opening the pictures. Now for these you can choose pretty much any picture you want. So you got flower, student, or tomato. Going to choose the flower. So we've opened the flower. Now this is a black and white image that's been scanned in. I'm going to add some color to it. So in this case I've got to go in and tell Photoshop that this will be a color picture. So go to Image, Mode. Now over here you'll notice what type of picture it is. Here it's saying this is a grayscale. I want to do RGB colors. So we're going to select that, which will now turn it into a color image so that it will then accept the colors I put into it. Now I have to decide what I really want to color in this image. And I want to do the flower here. Get my favorite selection tool, whatever one you have. And we'll begin going around here and start to select this flower. Going around the petals. Now again, if there are good tonal differences in the black and white areas here, the magnetic lasso will work well on a black and white image. I'm just used to the polygon lasso. I rather like it, so I just use it all the time. We're just going to keep going around till we've actually selected the entire flower. And then in this area here we have to decide what are petals and what aren't. Keep coming on around. Till we get all the way back to where we started. And we get to the end, just double click. Oops. So now we've got the flower here selected. We're going to now go in and refine this selection using the quick mask. Now the quick mask is activated simply by pressing the letter Q. You'll notice that comes on. Now under channels, if we go in here and you double click on this little thumbnail of the quick mask, see it brings up this little color thing here. You can then go in and we can choose to make this quick mask any color we want. I happen to like red, so we've got that. And you can set the opacity. Now the opacity is how much you're going to be able to see through the quick mask. You could set it all the way up to 100%, which really isn't too much use because you can't see what you're painting out. Or you can set it much, much lower. Say you want to go down to say 15%, which gives you just a light tint. So 50% is pretty good. We'll put that back in. Now you can also choose the area you want. So you can mask the area around the picture, or you can mask the area that you actually want to be part of the selection. Okay, so now we've got the area masked that is not going to be selected. Now here is the interesting part of this. Just as with the masking you've already learned about, you can go in with the brush. What you paint with black is going to turn red like this. What you paint with white will turn white like this area. And I can then go in, getting a small brush, and I can go in and I can refine this mask. So you turn black there, and I can go in and I can just carefully paint these areas in and refine this mask down so I can get it to be just exactly what I want. Again, if I make a mistake, all I do is change to the other color and paint it back out. So down here, get a part of the petal back in. Again, push down the space bar to get the hand. Move the picture over. And continue on refining the mask. Just carefully painting around all of these areas that you don't want to be part of the selection. And again, changing between white and black, you can go in and carefully refine this mask to get it down to be exactly what you want. And moving on over. Just putting into the selection and taking things out. So it's a real nice way of really refining down your selection to get just the area that you actually want. Again, this can be any color that you want, that you feel better with. Let's say if this you can also, by the way, do this on color pictures. So let's say if this picture was mainly red, you might want to be using a different color like green or something that's just going to show up well. I'm doing this a bit fast, but you'll get the idea of it. And when you're doing it and refining the mask, you can go in and just painstakingly paint what you want and get rid of what you don't want. So we're getting around the petals here. And because you can change the size of the brushes, you can get them as large or as small as you want. And you can also, when you go up in here, you can choose a hard brush or a soft brush for working it. I tend to like the slight feathers. Or you can go into the pencils. They're hard lines, but they give you very fine details as you get into it. I usually just prefer working with a nice soft brush to give you that slight feathered edge that you're getting into. Okay, so now that I have carefully painted this area out, I'll go back onto the keyboard. I'll type Q again to turn the quick mask off. Now the selection that I made originally has been refined down to just the area that I want here. Now for doing spot color, this particular technique, I'm going to choose a color that I want for the flower. Let's say we're going to make that pink. I will go in now to Edit, Fill. I'm going to choose the foreground color, but I'm going to set the opacity down to say like about 60 so that you'll be able to see through the color. Click the OK. We can see what I've got in there. If it's too much, I'll lower the opacity. If it's too little, I can go back and increase the opacity. But either way, I want you to get some of this nice shading that you can see through there. I can also go into Image, Adjust, Levels, and I can darken some of that shading in so that you begin to see some of the texture through the color. Okay, when I got that, we'll then go into the deselect. Then I can decide if I want to add some other color in. Let's say we're going to go down here, and I'm going to use the magnetic lasso, and I'm going to get this leaf down here. And we'll get the leaf over here as well. Now the magnetic lasso works real nicely with some of the black and white images. Not as well, I've found, with the color. Let's see, they're going around here. Get what we want again. So we've got that. Again, push the Q to go into the quick mask. Enlarge onto this area. Get a nice brush there, and we'll begin to refine the mask. Get rid of the areas where we don't want selected, and put the areas in that we do want selected. So we would just refine this selection down. Quick Mask is a very, very handy tool as you get into this. Push the Q again to turn the Quick Mask off. Then we're going to pick a green over here. Again, we're going to go into Edit, Fill. I thought that was a little bit heavy on the pink, so we'll go down to 50% opacity on the green. We'll click that, fill it with green. View to fit on screen. So we've got into there. We can also do a little bit of changing here. Image, Adjust, and go down to Hue and Saturation. Hue is actual color. So you can go in there and you can begin to change this color a little bit. So you can move through if you want. It's got purple leaves. But just move slowly. You can make slight alterations in the color if you'd like it. You can also do saturation, which sort of controls the intensity of the colors. And the select again, we will deselect it. And so the basic idea of the spot color is just adding in a little bit of color here and there where you want to put it in. Show you another example of this. Back to the Photoshop file, and let me see, we've got the two images here. Come on. A black and white image that we've got there, and then File, and we'll open the other one. Slowly. So you can begin to see what you can do. Separate them. In this case, where you can go in and begin to add the color. What this was designed to sort of look like is the old-fashioned pictures where they would hand tint them. So you could go in and do this sort of coloring on the picture to give you this sort of hand-tinted image, going from the black and white into a color picture. Close those down. So that's one way of doing spot color using the quick mask to refine the image. There is another way, which we're going to show you right now. So let's close that one. I'm going to go in here now to File, Open. Going back to Exercise 7. And we're going to open the Clover. Okay, this is a color picture that we've already got. We're going to also want to turn that, however, into a spot color image. So we're going to go back over here to Layers. Now, here we have got the layers. So here we've got the picture that we just opened. We're going to drag that down to the layer icon here to create a new layer, an exact duplicate of this picture underneath. Then I'm going to go into this image, this top one, and under Image, I'm going to go into Adjust, and I'm going to desaturate it. In other words, I'm taking the color out. I'm not changing it from a color to a black and white image, though. I'm just deleting the color. Now, on top of this layer, I'm going to put on a mask again. Click the icon so I've got the mask here. I'm going to decide what I want in color. So go up there. Remember, what I paint on here with black will show the bottom picture through. What I paint with white will leave the top picture. That brush a little bit. So if I go on here with black and I start painting, I can start bringing that bottom picture through, and because it's exactly the same as the top picture, what it's going to be is just adding color. Again, go to a slightly smaller brush when we get down here toward the edges. Whoops, see if I painted in there and didn't want to. Switch colors, paint it out. Masks are one of the favorite things in working with this. So they can do all kinds of things with them. And we're going to go in here and I'm going to paint this flower back in. So you begin to get the idea of how this would look. And so I'm just going to decide the few areas where I want color into this picture. This is a technique which has been catching on, and you begin to see it now in a number of the ads and such, where most of the image is black and white, and you just have one part that is in color. And this is how it's done. It's done by masking out the black and white part of the image so that the color underneath it can come through. So I can just paint that on. Now let's say we'll go over to another area. Flower down here. Now if I go up to the opacity and I bring the opacity down, so I'm lowering it, it means the black here is not going to show through as strong. So I can begin to paint it in, and what I'll do is get a more pastel or a tint to it. I can go, what you want, all the way down. So you get even less color coming through. So I have complete control over how much color I want to come in. Now let's see the full screen here. We'll get rid of that part that we did. And so what else should we paint in here? Now, if you can't decide what you want to do, just turn the top layer off with the eye and say, I'd like to get some of those red flowers in here. So we turn it back on. We go back over with the brush. Remember where they were? We start painting it in. I'm going to bring the opacity up a little bit. And so I can begin painting that flower back in. If I start painting leaf instead of flower, just reverse the colors and get rid of it. unless of course I want the leaf. The whole point on this is it gives you absolute control over what colors you bring in and which ones you leave out. And that is producing this whole idea of spot color. And again, I can turn it off and see what I'm missing. I'm missing this petal over here. Turn it back on and continue painting. So masking is a very, very handy little technique. It gives you a lot of different controls, and it gives you some real nice ability to produce, as we're saying, spot color into these images. So we go around with this. And as it is, you can paint in whatever you like. Let's say I want that little bud there. You can decide maybe you want some of the leaves to come in, and you'll notice that's not a leaf, that's a flower. So we'll get rid of that, and we'll go up here. That has to be a leaf. Yeah. Make the brush a little bigger. We can begin bringing in just the areas we want in color, leaving the rest black and white. Again, if you paint anything you don't want, just reverse the two, the black and the white, and paint it out again. As said, you cannot make mistakes when you're doing the mask. That's the idea of putting in some spot color. Now, I'm going to show you one other thing over here. When we go to Channels, you will notice we have got this background copy mask now. In other words, that's the mask that you're painting here. If I take this mask and I pull it down to the layer here to copy it, that's an alpha channel. I can click on that and I can give it a name, say flower mask. And I can also see where it hasn't been painted on here yet. But this will always stay with the picture, regardless of what I do here. Whether I flatten it or not doesn't really matter. It'll always be there. And that means every time I go back to this picture, I can go in and just load it. Now you'll notice this is a red color here. Reason for that, I did not turn the mask off. Turn that off, and we go back to these colors. But I can now go in anytime I want under Select, Load the selection. I can go into that mask and I can load it. And it automatically produces a selection there. I could do it today, I can do it next week, as long as I want. I can go back in and select it. So we'll deselect that now. Right now I'm going to repair some of those holes in the mask. Again, make sure you're painting on the mask, not the picture. The mask is the active one when it has this thick sort of border around it. Now the picture is active. You can see with that thick border. Okay. I'll give you this. Let's say if I forgot that and I'm going over here and I'm going to paint on, then when I go in, it's going to paint right on the picture. That's not what I want. I want the background to show through. So we're going to paint on the mask. And we can go in and begin to repair some of those holes in it. Now what I would have to do, this is not painting on the alpha channel. I would have to go back and resave it again as an alpha channel. We're getting into this. So I can go in and put in the nice spot color wherever I want. I can to control how dark it is, so I can make it more like a tint or a full color. That's up to me. So there are two ways you can do spot color, and you've also had a little bit of experience now using the quick mask. Any one of these selection tools you use, you can put it in, then you can hit the Q, bringing up the quick mask, and you can go in with a brush or a pencil and carefully refine that selection till you get exactly what you want. Now, the more you refine the selection before you save it as an alpha channel, the better it's going to be when you use it later.